The stars looked the same as they had 300 years ago, but everything else had changed. Admiral Marcus Reed stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the distant lights that marked other worlds, other civilizations, other lives. Earth had been listening to their conversations for centuries now, understanding their languages, learning their secrets, watching their wars. Most humans never knew how much their planet really understood about the galaxy. They went about their daily lives thinking Earth was alone, isolated, unimportant. The truth was far different. Every signal that crossed space, every ship that moved between systems, every diplomatic message sent between alien governments passed through Earth's listening posts. Humanity had become the galaxy's most dedicated student. The Galactic Federation controlled most of known space through 17 major civilizations. The Canthari Empire ruled the eastern regions with brutal efficiency, crushing anyone who opposed them. The Vilox Confederacy owned the fastest ships and controlled the major trade routes. The Nexari kept vast libraries of knowledge and served as neutral mediators when conflicts arose. Dozens of smaller species lived under their protection or suffered. Under their control, all of them knew Earth existed. None of them cared. Dr. Lisa Wong worked in the translation center deep inside Luna Station. Her team had spent decades learning alien languages, not from diplomatic contact, but from intercepted communications. The Canthari spoke in harsh, clipped tones that matched their aggressive nature. The Velox used rapid bursts of sound that could convey complex ideas in seconds. The Nexori communicated through harmonic frequencies that sounded like music to human ears. The Canthari are moving ships toward the Arcturi system again, Wong reported to Admiral Reed during their weekly briefing. Same pattern as before the Zeltos incident. Reed nodded grimly. The Zeltos had been a peaceful farming species. The Canthari had declared their world contained strategic resources and had taken it by force. The Federation had issued a strongly worded statement condemning the action. The Zeltos were now extinct. Captain Tom Bradley commanded the Deep Space Monitoring Station beyond Pluto, hidden in the shadow of a small asteroid. His facility looked like space debris from the outside, but inside it housed some of the most advanced sensor equipment in human space. Every ship that entered the solar system, every probe that passed nearby, every signal that crossed their region of space was detected, analyzed, and cataloged. They still think we're primitives, Bradley often told his crew. One planet, no faster than light travel, no real technology. That's what their files say about us. The alien files were wrong about many things. Humanity had faster than light travel, but they kept their ships small and used them carefully. They had advanced weapons, but they tested them in the outer regions, where no one would notice. They had developed technologies that improved on alien designs, but they did so in secret facilities that looked like ordinary research stations. Earth's real strength is not in any single technology, but in their ability to learn and adapt. When the Velox had first demonstrated their hyperspace drives 2 centuries ago, human scientists had analyzed every energy signature, every gravitational distortion, every side effect of the technology. Within 50 years, they had built drives that were faster and more efficient than the originals. The same pattern had repeated with Canthari weapons, Nexari shields, and dozens of other alien technologies. Humanity would observe, understand, and then improve. But they never revealed what they had learned. The Global Defense Council met in a secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered monthly to discuss what they had learned about galactic affairs and how humanity should respond. For 3 centuries, the response had always been the same: watch, learn, and wait. The Thalen have made contact again, reported Director James Miller, head of Earth's Xenobiology Division. Same as before. Mathematical proofs, star charts, peaceful greetings. They seemed genuinely interested in friendship. The Thalen were different from most alien species. While others ignored Earth or dismissed humanity as irrelevant, the Thalen had actually tried to communicate. They sent carefully crafted messages that demonstrated their intelligence and peaceful intentions. They shared scientific knowledge and asked for nothing in return except acknowledgement that they existed. "Should we respond this time?" asked General Ana Rodriguez, commander of Earth's hidden fleet. Not yet, Reed replied. The moment we reveal ourselves, everything changes. We lose our greatest advantage. Their greatest advantage was being underestimated. Every alien government had files on Earth that described humanity as a single-planet species with primitive technology and limited intelligence. They saw humans as no more threatening than any other pre-space civilization. This mistake had allowed Earth to build a network of observation posts, develop advanced technologies, and create a military force that none of them suspected existed. The irony was not lost on the council members. Humanity had become the most informed species in the galaxy by pretending to be the least informed.
Alice.
They knew more about alien politics than most alien politicians did. They understood galactic economics better than the species that controlled interstellar trade. They had studied alien military tactics so thoroughly that they could predict enemy movements before those enemies made them, but knowledge came with a price. Earth's leaders watched helplessly as stronger species conquered weaker ones. They observed genocides, witnessed the destruction of entire civilizations, and saw injustices that made their blood boil. The Federation always responded with words, never with action. Diplomacy was their solution to every problem, even when diplomacy had already failed. Wong often wondered what would happen if Earth finally decided to act. The alien species thought they knew everything about human capabilities, but they had never seen humanity at war. They had studied human history and dismissed it as the primitive conflicts of a backward species. They did not understand that humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. The Nexari archives contained detailed records of every major conflict in galactic history, she reported to the Council. I've analyzed their tactical assessments. They focus on individual technologies and single-species strategies. None of them have ever faced an enemy that could coordinate multiple systems simultaneously or adapt their tactics in real time. This was humanity's secret weapon. Not any single technology or strategy, but their ability to think like their enemies. While remaining fundamentally human, they could use Kenthri aggression, Velox speed, and Nexari wisdom all at once, creating combinations that no alien commander had ever encountered. The waiting was becoming harder. Each year brought new atrocities, new injustices, new reasons for Earth to reveal itself and take action. But the Council held firm to their policy of observation. They would watch, learn, and prepare until the moment came when silence was no longer an option. That moment was coming sooner than any of them realized. In the distant Arcturi system, events were unfolding that would finally force humanity to choose between safety and justice. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's patience, while vast, was not infinite. The first reports from the Arcturi system came through routine monitoring channels. Dr. Lisa Wong was analyzing communication patterns when she noticed the sudden increase in Canthri military transmissions. The language was different this time. More formal, more official. They were using words that appeared in their historical conquest records. Admiral, we have a problem, Wong called from her station in the Luna facility. The Canthri are mobilizing a full battle fleet toward Arcturi. The communication patterns matched their pre-invasion protocols. Admiral Reed felt his stomach tighten. Arcturi was home to the Thalon, the gentle beings who had spent decades trying to communicate with Earth. Unlike other species who ignored humanity or saw them as primitive, the Thalon had reached out with genuine curiosity and friendship, sent mathematical proofs that showed their intelligence, star charts that demonstrated their knowledge, and simple messages that expressed their desire for peace. How long do we have? Reed asked. Based on Canthri fleet speeds and current positions, they'll reach Arcturi in 6 days, Wong replied. The Thalon don't have any military vessels. Their planetary defenses are minimal, designed more for asteroid deflection than warfare. Captain Tom Bradley's Deep Space Station intercepted the official Canthri declaration later that day. The Empire claimed Arcturi as part of their ancestral territory, despite the fact that no Canthri had ever lived there. They demanded immediate evacuation of all Thalon colonists and the surrender of planetary resources. The Thalon response was heartbreaking in its innocence. They offered to share their world peacefully, pointing out that Arcturi was large enough for both species. They provided historical records showing their 2-century presence on the planet. They even offered to relocate to a smaller continent. If the Canthari truly needed the space, the Canthari reply was a single word: unacceptable. In the secure chambers beneath the Swiss Alps, Earth's Global Defense Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every major nation gathered to watch as the situation developed. For the first time in 3 centuries, they faced a choice that could not be postponed. The Federation response is predictable, reported Director Miller. They've issued a formal statement expressing concern and calling for diplomatic resolution. 3 member species have offered to mediate. The Canthari have ignored all offers. General Rodriguez pulled up tactical displays showing the approaching Canthari fleet. 47 heavy destroyers, 12 battle cruisers, and 3 command vessels. Standard conquest formation. They're not planning to negotiate. The Thalan had no way to defend themselves. Their society was built around cooperation and peaceful problem-solving. They had no standing military, no weapons of war, no experience. With the kind of violence the Canthari were known for, they were scholars, artists, and farmers who had never harmed another living being. Dr. Wong had spent years studying Thalan communications. Their language was filled with concepts that had no equivalent in most other species' vocabularies. They had 17 different words for types of friendship, but no word for enemy. Their mathematical systems were based on harmony and balance, rather than competition and dominance. They're still sending messages, Wong reported. Not to the Canthari, but to anyone who will listen. They're asking for help, but they're not demanding it. They're apologizing for being a burden on the galaxy. The first Canthari ships reached Arcturi on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. The attack began immediately. Plasma cannons designed to shatter starship hulls were turned on cities. Orbital bombardment platforms that could crack asteroids were used to destroy farms and schools. The weapons were precise, calculated to cause maximum terror while leaving the planet's resources intact. Earth's monitoring stations recorded every moment. The Thalan tried to evacuate their cities, moving in orderly groups that helped the elderly and carried their children. They offered no resistance, made no attempt to fight back. They simply tried to survive. It was not enough. The Canthari had perfected the art of genocide over centuries of conquest. They knew exactly how to break a species' will to resist. They targeted schools first, then hospitals, then any gathering, place where hope might survive. They left communications intact so that parents could hear their children's final words and survivors could witness the destruction of everything they loved. Captain Bradley's crew watched in silence as the reports came in. Entire cities reduced to glass. Families torn apart by precision strikes. Children killed in front of their parents as a lesson in the cost of resistance. The Federation's response was another strongly worded statement and a call for economic sanctions that would take months to implement. The slaughter continued for 6 weeks. The Canthari were thorough, systematic, and patient. They did not simply destroy the Thalan. They ensured that no trace of Thalan culture would survive. Libraries were burned, artworks were melted, and even the simple monuments the Thalan had, built to mark their arrival on Arcturi, were ground to dust. Earth's leaders watched it all through their hidden sensors. They recorded every atrocity, cataloged every war crime, and documented every moment of a gentle species destruction. The knowledge felt like poison in their hearts, but they maintained their policy of non-interference. Until the final transmission, it came from the last Thalan enclave, a small settlement in the northern mountains where a few hundred survivors had taken shelter. Dr. Wong was monitoring communication channels when the signal appeared on the same frequency the Thalan had used for their original messages to Earth. Transmission was simple, brief, and devastating. It was spoken in the Thalan's musical language, but Wong's translation systems had long ago learned to understand their speech. The message was directed not at the Canthari, not at the Federation, but at anyone in the galaxy who might be listening. "We forgive those who could have helped but chose silence," the voice said. It was an elderly Thalan, probably one of their scientists or teachers. "We understand that our lives are small things in the great dance of stars, But we wanted to say that we remember friendship, even if friendship did not remember us. Our songs end now, but perhaps others will remember that kindness once existed in this galaxy. The transmission ended. Canthori plasma cannons reduced the mountain settlement to slag 30 minutes later. The Thalon were extinct. That night, Admiral Reed stood alone in his observation deck, staring at the distant star that had once been home to a gentle species. For 300 years, Earth had chosen silence. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, witnessed injustices and atrocities, and maintained their policy of careful observation. But something had changed. The Thalon had reached out to humanity in friendship, and humanity had failed them. Not through malice or hatred, but through inaction at the moment when action was needed most. The weight of that failure settled on Reed's shoulders like a physical burden. The emergency session of the Global Defense Council lasted 18 hours. Representatives argued, debated, and agonized over the choice that lay before them. They could continue their policy of silent observation, remaining safe and hidden while the galaxy tore itself apart, or they could reveal themselves and face the consequences of 3 centuries of secret preparation. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Earth would wait no longer. General Rodriguez began issuing orders to facilities that officially did not exist. Captain Bradley's monitoring station transformed into a command center for operations that had been planned but never implemented. Dr. Wong's translation. Teams prepared to send messages in languages that aliens thought humans could not speak. For 300 years, the galaxy had dismissed Earth as irrelevant. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to remember kindness, to honor friendship, and to act when others chose silence. The Thalon were gone, but their memory would not die in vain. Earth was about to teach the galaxy what happened when you crossed the line that separated justice from genocide. And the lesson would be written in the wreckage of those who thought compassion was weakness. The galaxy's first hint that Earth was not what it seemed came 3 weeks after the Thalon extinction. The Canthri Empire, flush with victory and confident in their power, decided to expand their recent success. Their target was the Nexari, homeworld, where crystalline beings had maintained the galaxy's greatest libraries for over 2,000 years. Admiral Vorth commanded the Canthri strike force from his flagship, the Iron Fist. He was a veteran of dozens of conquests, a master of the swift, brutal campaigns that had built the Empire's reputation. The plan was simple: destroy the Nexari defense fleet, capture their archives, add their knowledge to the Empire's growing collection of stolen wisdom. The Nexari were not warriors, but they were not helpless either. Their crystalline bodies could channel energy in ways that made them effective defenders, and their homeworld was protected by some of the most advanced shielding technology in the galaxy. Vorth expected resistance, but he also expected victory. The Canthri fleet was larger, better armed, more experienced in warfare. What he did not expect was interference from a species that was supposed to be primitive. Commander Alex Torres sat in the captain's chair of the Earth vessel, silent. Storm, watching the Canthri fleet approach the Nexari system. His ship was one of 12 in the first wave of Earth's response. Vessels that had been built in secret over the past century and hidden in the dark spaces between stars. The silent Storm looked nothing like the crude spacecraft that appeared in alien files about human technology. It was sleek, deadly, and equipped with systems that combined the best of every major galactic civilization. Velox hyperdrives that had been refined beyond their creator's understanding. Canthri plasma, cannons that fired with twice the normal efficiency. Nexari shields that had been enhanced with human innovations. But the real advantage was not in any single technology. It was in the crew's ability to coordinate multiple complex systems simultaneously, to think 3 moves ahead of their enemies, and to adapt their tactics in real time as situations changed. These were skills that other species had tried to develop for centuries without success. All ships were port ready, announced Lieutenant Emma Foster from her position at the tactical station. Enemy fleet is maintaining standard attack formation. They haven't detected us yet. Torres smiled. Canthri were about to receive their first lesson in human warfare. They thought they understood everything about combat because they had conquered weaker species for generations. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology while exceeding their tactical flexibility. The Canthari fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexari system, exactly where Earth's analysts had predicted they would appear. Vorth's ships moved into their traditional attack formation, heavy destroyers in the front, battle cruisers providing support. Command vessels safely in the rear. It was a formation that had worked against dozens of species over the centuries. It would have worked against the Nexari too, if they had been alone. All vessels, execute Thunder Run Protocol, Torres commanded. The human ships materialized from hyperspace in perfect coordination, appearing in the gaps between Canthari vessels like ghosts stepping out of darkness. Their timing was flawless. Their positioning precise, their first strikes devastating. Torres had studied every major battle in Canthari's history. He knew their tactics, their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their psychological responses to unexpected situations. The Canthari were aggressive fighters, but they were also predictable. In surprise, they always responded with overwhelming force directed at the strongest apparent threat. The Silent Storm became that threat, deliberately drawing enemy fire while her sister ships struck from unexpected angles. Torres' crew coordinated their movements with an efficiency that amazed their enemies. While Canthari commanders struggled to adapt to the changing situation, human captains were already implementing their third and fourth contingency plans. The first Canthari destroyer exploded in a cascade of plasma fire 12 minutes after the battle began. The second followed 30 seconds later. By the time Admiral Vorth realized he was facing an entirely new type of enemy, half his fleet was already crippled or destroyed. Impossible, Vorth muttered, watching his tactical displays with growing disbelief. These are human vessels. Humans are primitives. Single planet, no advanced technology, limited intelligence. His intelligence officer was frantically checking and rechecking the sensor readings. Sir, the energy signatures are definitely human, but the technology is. I don't understand. They're using our own weapons against us, but they're more powerful than ours. How is that possible? Vorth did not have an answer. The humans were supposed to be irrelevant, a species so backward that they barely qualified for inclusion in galactic databases. Yet here they were, dismantling his fleet with casual efficiency while demonstrating tactical skills that surpassed anything in Canthari. Military academies, the battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 47 Canthari vessels had been reduced to debris floating in the void. The human fleet had taken no casualties and suffered only minimal damage. The Canthari flagship, the mighty Iron Fist, hung powerless in space, with its weapons disabled and its crew in shock. Torres materialized on the bridge of the Iron Fist accompanied by a small boarding party. The human soldiers wore armor that combined protective elements from multiple alien designs, while adding innovations that made them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. They moved with confidence and precision that spoke of extensive training and absolute competence. Admiral Vorth stared at the humans in disbelief. He had conquered hundreds of worlds, faced dozens of alien species in combat, and built a reputation as one of the Empire's most successful commanders. But he had never encountered anything like this. You're supposed to be primitives, he said through his translator. His voice filled with confusion and growing fear. Torres removed his helmet, revealing a face that was younger than Vorth had expected, but carried the confidence of someone who had just achieved exactly what he had planned to achieve. We've been watching you for 300 years, Admiral. We know everything about your tactics, your technology, your psychology. We know how you think, how you fight, how you respond to pressure. That's impossible. Your species lacks the neural capacity for advanced strategic thinking. Our analysts have confirmed this repeatedly. Your analysts, Torres replied calmly, have been working with deliberately false information for centuries. We've been very careful to appear less capable than we actually are. It's amazing what you can learn when your enemies underestimate you. The truth was starting to sink in. The Canthari had built their empire by preying on species that were weaker, less organized, or technologically inferior. They had never faced an enemy that had spent centuries studying their methods and developing counters for every possible tactic. The Nexari archives will remain intact, Torres continued. Your surviving ships will return to Can-3 space immediately. You will carry a message to your Empire's leadership. What message? Vorth asked, though he dreaded the answer. That the galaxy has a new player. Humanity is no longer content to watch from the sidelines. That the strong can no longer prey on the weak without consequences. Torres gestured to his soldiers, who began escorting the Can-3 crew to transport vessels that would carry them back to their damaged ships. Your empire has built its power on the principle that might makes right. You're about to discover. What happens when you encounter someone who's mightier? As the human boarding party prepared to leave, Vorth called out desperately. This won't end here. The Empire has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You've won one battle, but you can't fight the entire galaxy. Torres paused at the bridge entrance and looked back at the defeated admiral. We've been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries, Admiral. We've studied every species analyzed, every technology, planned for every contingency. We didn't reveal ourselves until we were ready to win. The human commander left the bridge. Minutes later, the Silent Storm and her sister ships vanished back into hyperspace, leaving the wreckage of the Can-3 fleet floating in space as proof that the galaxy's balance of power had fundamentally changed. News of the battle spread across subspace communication networks within hours. Every major species received detailed reports of the engagement, complete with tactical analyses that proved humanity possessed military capabilities far beyond anything in their official files. The reactions varied from species to species. The underlying message was the same. Earth was no longer the primitive, irrelevant world they had dismissed for centuries. Humanity had announced its presence on the galactic stage. They had done so by demonstrating that even the mighty Can-3 Empire could be defeated by enemies who understood the true nature of warfare. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had been excellent students during their 3 centuries of observation. They had absorbed the lessons of every conflict, understood the weaknesses of every major power, and prepared for the day when they would no longer be content to watch injustice. From the sidelines, that day had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy's response to humanity's intervention was swift and panicked. Within days of the Can-3 fleet's destruction, emergency sessions were called in every major government. The Federation Council met in continuous session for the first time in its history. Trade routes were suspended as military vessels rushed to defensive positions. The comfortable order that had existed for centuries was crumbling. Supreme. Chancellor Dex of the Velox Confederacy stood before the emergency assembly, his rapid speech patterns betraying unusual stress. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections for their development timeline. Our intelligence agencies estimate they should not have achieved faster than light travel for at least another century. General Krex of the Federation Defense Force activated a holographic display showing the wreckage of Admiral Vorth's fleet. Analysis of the battle shows tactical coordination beyond anything we've seen from a single species. They moved like they could read Can-3 minds, anticipating every maneuver before it was made. The assembled representatives from dozens of species watched the replay of the engagement with growing alarm. Human ships had moved with impossible precision, striking at exactly the right moment and position to achieve maximum effect. Their weapons were familiar, but enhanced beyond recognition. Their tactics were textbook perfect, but applied in combinations that no military academy had ever taught. High Arbiter Nell of the Nexari provided the most disturbing analysis of all. We have reviewed our historical records spanning 4,000 years of galactic civilization. No species has ever demonstrated this level of strategic sophistication upon first military engagement. The humans fought as if they had centuries of combat experience. The truth was more frightening than any of them realized. Humanity did have centuries of combat experience, gained not through warfare, but through observation and analysis. Every battle ever fought in galactic space had been recorded, studied, and understood by human military analysts. They had learned from everyone's mistakes and successes while making none of their own. Ambassador Wrath of the remaining Can-3 leadership spoke with barely controlled fury. They must be eliminated before they can threaten other civilized worlds. The Empire proposes immediate joint military action to contain this threat to galactic stability. The word contain was diplomatic language for genocide, and everyone in the assembly understood it. The major powers might disagree on trade policies or territorial boundaries, but they agreed that no primitive species should possess such devastating military capabilities. The Federation Council voted to authorize what they called remedial action against Earth. Admiral Reed watched the vote from Luna Station, monitoring the Federation's communications as they debated humanity's fate. His expression remained calm, but inside he felt a mixture of sadness and determination. Had hoped to find wisdom and justice in galactic civilization. Instead, they had found fear and the same brutal logic that had destroyed the Thalon. "How long do we have?" asked General Rodriguez, commander of Earth's secret military forces. "Based on fleet mobilization patterns, approximately 6 weeks," replied Captain Bradley from his monitoring station. "They're assembling the largest combined force in galactic history. 12 species are contributing ships, with the Can-3 and Velox providing the largest contingents." Dr. Wong studied the enemy fleet composition with professional interest. Over 3,000 vessels representing every major military technology in known space. They're expecting to face a small human fleet, maybe a few dozen ships at most. Reed smiled grimly. Then they're going to be very surprised. The enemy fleet began gathering at Rally Point 7, a neutral system 2 jumps from Earth's solar system. The sight was impressive, even to human observers who had spent decades studying galactic military power. Battlecruisers from the Can-3. Empire bristled with weapons designed to crack planets. Velox destroyers carried engines that could outrun anything in space. Nexari support vessels provided shields strong enough to protect entire fleets. But impressive was not the same as prepared. The combined fleet was a collection of different species using different technologies and different tactical doctrines. Their commanders had never worked together before. Communication systems were barely compatible. Coordination was limited to basic maneuvers that every species could understand. Commander Torres, now promoted to Admiral after his victory, over the Can-3 stood in Earth's primary command center deep inside the moon. The facility had been constructed over the past century, hidden beneath mining operations that provided cover for its true purpose. Holographic displays showed the approaching enemy fleet in perfect detail, tracked by humanity's vast sensor network. "All Ghost fleets report ready," announced Lieutenant Foster, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "Stealth mines are positioned throughout the system. Planetary defense grids are online. Home fleet is standing by." The enemy had expected to find Earth defended by whatever small force had destroyed Admiral Vorth's squadron. Instead, they were about to encounter humanity's true military strength. Not dozens of ships, but thousands. Not experimental vessels, but production fleets that had been built in secret over decades of preparation. The combined galactic fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, expecting to find a single world protected by a handful of mysterious ships. Admiral Vorth, restored to command despite his previous defeat, led the Can-3 contingent from his new flagship. He was confident that numbers would overcome whatever tactical advantages the humans possessed. "Begin the advance," he ordered, his fleet moving toward Earth in the same formation that had conquered dozens of worlds. "All vessels, maintain standard attack pattern. Target any human ships that appear, and prepare for orbital bombardment of the planet." The human response was immediate and devastating. Ships materialized from hyperspace in formations that surrounded the enemy fleet completely. They appeared not in the empty space between planets, but in perfect attack positions that took advantage of every weakness in the galactic formation. Admiral Reed commanded the overall battle from his position on Luna, coordinating the movements of hundreds of ships with a precision that amazed even his own officers. Execute Plan Thunderstorm. Fleets implement maximum cortical. The Battle of Sol was unlike anything in galactic history. Humanity fought with a unity of command that their enemies could not match. While alien commanders struggled to coordinate between species, human captains moved as parts of a single organism. They shared targeting data instantly, adapted their tactics in real time, supported each other with an efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. The enemy fleet found itself fighting not one battle but dozens of smaller engagements, designed to exploit specific weaknesses in their formation. Can-3 ships, accustomed to fighting weaker opponents, discovered that their aggressive tactics made them vulnerable to coordinated crossfire from multiple directions. Vilox vessels, built for speed and hit-and-run attacks, found themselves trapped by human formations that anticipated their escape routes. Admiral Vorth, his tactical displays with growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. How are they doing this? There are only humans here, but they're fighting like they have the combined military experience of every species in the galaxy. His tactical officer checked and rechecked the sensor readings, unable to believe what she was seeing. Sir, their coordination is perfect. They're not just using our technologies against us, they're using our tactics against us. It's like fighting ourselves, but better. The battle lasted 3 days, not because the humans needed that long to win, but because they wanted to send a message. Every moment of the engagement was broadcast across galactic communication networks, ensuring that every species in known space could watch their supposedly superior military forces being methodically defeated by the primitive humans. When the surviving enemy ships finally retreated, less than half their original number remained functional. Earth had lost only 43 vessels, and every one of those losses had been carefully calculated to achieve maximum strategic advantage while minimizing human casualties. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the wreckage of their greatest military effort drifted in Earth's solar system. Humanity had not just won a defensive battle, they had demonstrated a level of military sophistication that exceeded the combined capabilities of every major galactic power. Admiral Reed addressed the retreating fleets from Luna Station, his words carried across subspace to every government in known space. You came here to destroy us because you feared what we might become. Now you know what we already are. Return to your worlds and consider carefully whether you want us as enemies or allies. The message was clear. Earth was no longer hiding in the shadows of galactic civilization. Humanity had announced itself as a major power. They had done so by proving that 3 centuries of patient observation had made them the most formidable military force in known space. The aftermath of the Battle of Sol shook the galaxy to its foundations. Within weeks of the devastating defeat, the Can-3 Empire began to collapse as subject species across their territory rose in rebellion. The Velox Confederacy watched their trade monopolies crumble as client species demanded better terms or turned to new partners. The Federation Council dissolved into chaos as member governments questioned everything they thought they knew about galactic power structures. President Maria Santos stood at the podium in the United Nations building in New York, preparing to address not just humanity, but trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds. The speech would be broadcast simultaneously on every major communication network in known space, carried by translation systems that would render her words into thousands of alien languages. Dr. Wong worked frantically in the hours before the address, coordinating with translation teams to ensure that humanity's message would be understood correctly by every species. The stakes were enormous. Earth's military victory had gained the galaxy's attention, but winning the peace would require different skills entirely. The Thalan word for hope translates poorly into most galactic languages. Wong explained to President Santos during their final briefing, but their concept of growing light captures what we're trying to communicate. We're not here to conquer, but to nurture the potential for something better. Santos nodded, understanding the weight of what she was about to say. Its hidden strength, but now it needed to show its true character. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see whether humanity would use its power to become another empire or to build something entirely different. The address began at noon, Earth time, with every major news network in human space carrying the signal, but the real audience was beyond Earth's borders. In the alien worlds, where beings gathered around communication devices to hear what the newest galactic power would say, people of the galaxy, Santos began, her voice steady and clear. For 3 Centuries humanity has watched from the shadows of our home system. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, and tried to understand the civilization you had built among the stars. Admiral Reed monitored alien communication networks from Luna Station. Watching as her words were translated and retransmitted across space, the responses were immediate and varied. Some species transmitted messages of support, others demanded explanations, and a few called for continued resistance to human expansion. "We hope to see justice guide your actions," Santos continued. "We hope to witness compassion in your dealings with weaker species. We hope to find wisdom in your solutions to galactic problems. Instead, we saw the strong prey upon the weak while others turned away in silence." The president's words were carefully chosen to resonate with species who had suffered under the old order. Across the galaxy, beings who had been conquered, enslaved, or simply ignored by the major powers listened with growing interest to humanity's vision of a different future. Captain Bradley, now commanding Earth's expanded deep space monitoring network, reported growing activity in previously quiet sectors. Dozens of species are sending diplomatic signals toward Earth. The Zephyrians want to establish formal relations. The Corvin Republic is offering a trade agreement. Even some former Canthori client species are requesting protection. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had been dismissed as irrelevant by the major powers were suddenly asserting their independence, confident that Earth would support their right to self-determination. The galaxy's political map was being redrawn, not through conquest, but through voluntary association. "The Thalan reached out to us in friendship," Santos said, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's greatest regret. "They offered knowledge, sought understanding, and asked for nothing but acknowledgement that they existed. We failed to answer. Their call in time, and their voices were silenced forever." Across the galaxy, beings who had never heard of the Thalan learned of their fate. The story of their destruction became a symbol of everything that was wrong with the old order. A reminder of the cost of indifference in the face of injustice. Commander Torres, now leading Earth's diplomatic escort fleets, reported the first major test of humanity's new role. The Canthori are attempting to retake the Belgon system. The local government has requested our assistance under the new protection protocols. The Belgon situation was crucial. If Earth intervened successfully, it would demonstrate that humanity's promises of protection were real. If they failed or refused to act, their credibility as a galactic power would be destroyed before it was fully established. The response was swift and decisive. A human fleet appeared in the Belgon system within hours of the request for help, arriving just as Canthori forces were preparing to bombard the planet's major cities. The brief engagement ended with the Canthori fleet in full retreat, and the Belgon government formally requesting membership in what was being called the Terran Commonwealth. "Earth offers a choice to the galaxy," Santos concluded her historic address. "Join us in building a civilization worthy of the stars, or discover that humanity's patience, while vast, is not infinite. We will not rule over you, but we will stand with you. We will not conquer your worlds, but we will defend your right to live freely upon them." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, over 50 species had applied for Commonwealth membership. Within weeks, the number had grown to hundreds. The application process was simple: respect the rights of other species, contribute to collective defense, and agree to peaceful resolution of disputes through Commonwealth mediation. Admiral Reed, now serving as Earth's first galactic defense coordinator, established headquarters in a massive space station constructed at the edge of human space. The facility, called New Geneva, became the symbol of humanity's commitment to galactic peace and cooperation. Dr. Wang found herself heading the Commonwealth's new Cultural Exchange Institute, working to preserve the knowledge and traditions of species that had been suppressed under the old order. The Thalan archives, recovered from Canthori databases, became the foundation for a new approach to interspecies understanding. The old powers struggled to adapt to the new reality. The Canthori Empire fragmented into dozens of smaller states, some of which joined the Commonwealth, while others maintained hostile independence. The Velox Confederacy restructured itself as a trade federation, offering competitive services rather than monopolistic control. The Nexari withdrew from galactic politics entirely, focusing on their role as keepers of historical knowledge. General Rodriguez, commanding Earth's rapid response fleets, reported the last major challenge to the New Order. A coalition of holdout species is massing near the Outer Rim. They're calling themselves the Independence Alliance, and claiming that human dominance is just another form of tyranny. The Commonwealth's response demonstrated the difference between Earth's approach and that of previous galactic powers. Instead of launching immediate military action, humanity offered negotiations. Instead of demanding surrender, they proposed compromise. Instead of seeking conquest, they worked toward coexistence. The negotiations took months, but they ultimately succeeded in establishing a neutral zone where species could maintain their independence while respecting Commonwealth territory and shipping lanes. It was a solution that would have been impossible under the old system, where every conflict ended in victory for the strong and subjugation for the weak. President Santos, now beginning her second term, stood once again at the podium in New York to address the Commonwealth's first annual assembly. Representatives from over 400 species filled the Great Hall, a gathering that would have been unthinkable just 5 years earlier. "We have built something new among the stars," she said, looking out at faces that represented the incredible diversity of galactic life. Not through conquest or coercion, but through the simple recognition that every species has the right to determine its own destiny. Admiral Reed watched the assembly from the observation gallery, remembering the centuries of silent observation that had led to this moment. Earth had waited quietly, learning and preparing for the day when the galaxy would need someone to stand against injustice. That day had come and gone, replaced by something better, a galaxy where justice was not an ideal, but a reality. The Terran Commonwealth was not perfect. Disputes still arose between member species. Economic problems required constant attention, and the threat of external enemies never completely disappeared. But for the first time in galactic history, a major power existed that measured its success, not by the territory it controlled, but by the peace it preserved. Captain Bradley, now retired but still serving as an advisor to the Commonwealth Defense Council, often visited the memorial that had been erected in Earth's orbit. The simple monument bore the names of every Thalen who had died in the Arcturi. Genocide, a reminder of the cost of indifference and the price of waiting too long to act. The galaxy had learned that Earth's patience was vast, but not infinite. More importantly, it had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics, but their refusal to accept that might makes right. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. And in the quiet spaces between the stars where humanity had waited for 3 centuries, new voices now sang of hope, justice, and the simple truth that kindness could exist in the galaxy after all.